Hello and welcome to Free Spirits. Our audience should know that alternative medicine has a lot of solutions for diseases that conventional medicine doesn't have. And this show today might be the most important interview you can ever see, because you can lose all your fear about cancer or whatever diseases when you understand what the cause and everything is. And with me is Harald Baumann from Switzerland, and he has written some books for children to explain it, because children are easier to understand this because they are not so in their mind set, and they are not brainwashed like most grown-up people. You are dealing with this for 30 years now, or how did it start with you?
Well, not quite 30 years. In fact, it all started in 1992-93 when I ran into this book of Dr. Hamer's, which is called The Legacy of a New Medicine. Yeah. Vermächtnis einer neuen Medizin is the original title. And at that time, I didn't know anything about medicine. In fact, I wasn't even interested in medicine, far from that. But when I picked up that book and started reading, I was fascinated by the language that he used. And I put that book beside my bed, and every evening, whenever I had time, I looked into it, and little by little I sort of got the red line of the idea, and it really got me hooked after some time. And it so happened that around 1995, when my wife, being a naturopathic doctor, had 3 patients with breast cancer. And these 3 patients had been with my wife for a very long time, for more than 12 years if I'm not mistaken, and all of them suddenly got breast cancer. And when I tried to explain this, because I saw my wife was a bit uneasy about this, you know, suddenly all 3 of them were diagnosed with breast cancer, and I tried to read her a passage from the book. And she wasn't really interested. She said, "No, come on, leave me alone. This is a doctor who wrote the book. They have no ideas about cancer. They don't even have ideas about sicknesses." And so it took another 2 or 3 days until she was listening. And when I read her that passage, she was electrified, and she really grabbed the book and read on. And after half an hour, something like that, she told me, "We must see that doctor. I want to see that doctor. I want to talk to him." But at that time, Dr. Hamer was already being chased around Europe, and we went up to Cologne to see him, but we only met closed doors. But fortunately, sometime afterwards, we found a little ad in a newspaper where it was announced that he was going to give a talk in Lindau in the southern part of Germany. And so we went there. It was in fact a closed course. There were no other people allowed to get in there. And when I called, they said, no, you can't come. It is not open to the public. But we went there anyway, and we managed somehow to get in. And from that moment on, we were really sure that this is the real thing in medicine.
And can you explain that in short? What is the main point for you that you would give out to the audience to understand that every disease has a cause, and if you understand, once you understand that cause, then you can get into the healing process, and you don't have to be afraid of breast cancer or whatever.
Yes, Joe, if you allow me another remark first, because I think first things first, I think that our audience should know that it is most important that they themselves try to get the information. The information is here. You can find it in the internet, you can find it in books, you can find it with certain naturopathic doctors, and it is up to them to really try to learn about it.
Yes.
If one thinks that a lot of people spend a lot of time planning their vacation or buying a new car or whatever, watching TV,
Yes.
if they only spent a fraction of their time with the 5 natural biological laws, they would certainly lose their fear of all sicknesses, diseases and ailments. It is simply gone. It is simply gone because you understand where the sickness comes from. So what is the exact mechanism of the sickness?
Yes.
All right, and now these 5 natural biological laws, they are not very easy to explain them in a few minutes. This is absolutely impossible, and I think that most people watching this will probably have to look elsewhere to learn more about these 5 natural biological laws. Now, I don't know, do you want me to give you a short explanation of what these 5 natural biological laws are all about?
Yes.
So we have to understand that each and every single sickness starts out with a psychobiological conflict. Mm-hmm. It is a sort of a catastrophe that happens to the individual, and it is a most severe, highly acute and isolative conflict. Isolative is very important because the individual usually can't talk about the conflict for one reason or the other. Yeah. It is very isolative and it makes the individual helpless. Now the definition, the precise definition, can also be found on the internet and in the books of New Medicine. So this is the trigger, and this trigger, Dr. Harmer called it the DHS, the Dirk Harmer syndrome. And it so happened that in the year 1978, if I'm not mistaken, in August 1978 or 1979, the son of Dr. Harmer was on a vacation in
Italy.
In Italy, mm-hmm. Near the island of Cavallo, and because of bad weather they had to spend a night in that port, and it so happened that in that port was also the then Prince Victor Emmanuel of Savoy. So if Italy still was a kingdom, then this prince would have become king of Italy. But he had been banned from Italy for a very, very long time. But he happened to be on that island at the same time as Dirk, with the group of people that Dirk was there. And for some reason or other, the prince got very angry, he ran out of his mind, and he started shooting around in the port of that where Dirk was sleeping in a boat, and Dirk got hit by a bullet, and it hit him near the hip, and the bullet went right through his upper part of the body, and Dirk was transported to a hospital, but he arrived there nearly dead, clinically dead in fact. But they managed to revive him, and he had to undergo 19 operations. So a lung was taken out, a leg was amputated, and he finally got transported to Germany, Heidelberg. And it was there that in December of the same year where the accident happened, so from August to December, Dirk was at the hospital, and he then died in the arms of his father. And that shock, as we now know, produced a testicle cancer for Dr. Harmer.
Yeah, and he was an oncologist himself. He was in a Bavarian cancer clinic, as far as I know, at that time. So he knew pretty well about cancer. But now he thought, what is the cause for my cancer now?
Testicle cancer, yeah, that's correct. He developed his testicle cancer after the death of his son, and he had it operated in a very traditional way, but he refused to have chemotherapy and radiation. and he survived. So this event, this terrible event, he describes it very well in his books. What emotion, what feelings, what deep perception he had of that event. It was the most devastating event he had ever had in all his life, and instinctively he made the link to his testicle cancer.
Yeah.
He had no scientific proof, nothing at all. It was just his stomach that told him this must be right. So he recovered from his sickness, and he then started working again at Bavarian clinic, as you rightly say. And in this clinic, of course, it was a gynecological clinic. You don't find any testicles except with perhaps the doctors.
Yeah.
So he thought that the pendant, so the men have testicles and women have got ovaries. He decided to examine these women as to their ovaries, to their ovarian cysts, to their ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
So he systematically asked or questioned all these women what had happened just before they were diagnosed with their ovarian cancer. And the stories were very different, but in the end there was a red line in it. There was a common point in it. So there was one woman who said, well, the most difficult situation I had lived in the past, short past, just before getting my diagnosis, was that I arrived at the stable and I just had to assist the shooting of my favorite horse because it had broken both of its legs. Another woman said, well, the most traumatic thing that he had gone through was a spontaneous abortion. Okay. And another one said, yeah, when I woke up one morning, I found a letter of my husband on the pillow beside me, and it was in fact a letter of goodbye, and he never came back again. And there was another woman who said that she had planned to get married with a man, and both of them had decided before getting married that they would take a vacation on their own. So the man, he decided to go to Canada for skiing, and when they went and when she accompanied him to the airport, and as she went through the customs, he turned around and said, look, Daisy, you can call off the marriage. I don't want to marry anymore, and I'm sorry, I don't love you.
Yeah, but we see he saw then that there's a common pattern with all of these patients, and he asked more and more patients, of course, and found out that there are certain rules to. Right. There's a conflict.
So he had found out that the common thing that they had together was the loss of a beloved person or animal through death or disappearance.
Yes.
Okay. So at that point he thought that he had discovered the cause for ovarian cancer and testicle cancer, because immediately afterwards he also checked. He asked men who had testicle cancer, and the stories were very similar. But little by little, of course, he said, well, if this is the cause for, if it's a feeling for the sickness, then how about the other sicknesses? And he pushed his research, and his finding was that every single sickness that develops from within, so there is no apparent sign from outside.
So we rule out radiation, of course.
We rule out radiation,
toxic,
poison, accidents, and things like that.
But other than that,
every single disease comes from within, and the beginning is always on the level of the psyche. Okay, every single sickness starts practically simultaneously, but it goes from the psyche to the brain and then to the organ. That is the mechanism.
Mhm.
Right.
And he could later find out that if you have a computer tomography image of the brain, you can see at the location of a certain change of the tissue, and he connects it the location with the
body part.
the body part and the conflict. So there's a correlation with three aspects, and he found out that it is really a rule, and you can. I saw him once, and someone was giving him a CT from a friend, and Dr. Hammer was just looking at it and said, "Okay, he has something with his legs; he can't walk." And he said, "How do you know that?" And you have this and that, and it's so long, and so he could just by looking at this picture of the brain say a lot about the patient, because it's really a rule and one of these rules. So you carry on explaining those 5 rules.
Yeah, this card or this chart, of the brain has been discovered by Dr. Hammer by asking all these people and by comparing their sickness with what has been going on in their brain. That's correct. So every single sickness always starts out on these 3 levels: psyche, brain, and the organ. And so I don't know. We can perhaps stay with or choose breast cancer if you agree with that.
Yeah.
Breast cancer.
As an example.
Yeah, breast cancer. I have a booklet here that I have written together with someone I am distributing the New Medicine here, where the mechanism here is very well
show it like that.
Shown. If we, for example, see the picture on the left side up here.
So there's an accident.
That's an accident. It's a child being run over by a car. It's a child that has let loose the hand of her mother, runs onto the street, and then is being overrun by a car. And this is the DHS. This is the psychobiological conflict, because a mother, what does she want? She wants a healthy child. So at that very moment, on the level of the psyche, she can't think about anything else any longer. She only thinks about her child. What can I do? How can I best help my child? Yeah. And she will remain in that. She will call the ambulance, or she will do anything to get help. And this is the first thing.
And then conflict shock.
At the same time, the conflict shock will end up in the brain at a very particular relay. Yeah. At a very particular relay. Here we see this woman. She has got a nodule in her left breast. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she's a right-hander. She must be a right-hander to get a nodule in her left breast, because there is a child concerned. She's very much concerned about her child. It would be the same if she was concerned about her mother, but here it is the child, and it's the same side.
The sides would switch if you're left or right-handed. Right. So that's one important aspect you want to know. Okay.
Yes.
So now she is developing breast cancer. Or
now she's developing breast cancer, because from the psychic level, it strikes the brain, the relay of the milk-producing alveoli. Okay, the milk-producing alveoli, they will start to increase. There will be more cells producing milk. And
because your child needs now help, and the mother tries to do it over the breast. Okay.
You're right. It's an archaic program that has always been like that. If 1,000 years ago a child had broken a leg or had fallen down off a tree, the mother automatically produced new cells in order to get more milk for the child ready. Okay. If it was on the other side, it would be for a partner. Okay. But this is for a child. Yeah. So, in fact, here we got the three levels: so psyche, brain, and organ.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and if you now got this diagnosis of cancer, and you know about this, Is there any hope now? Of course there is, because once you solve the conflict, then you get into the healing process.
Yes.
And most people don't know that, so that would be much easier to heal cancer just
Yes.
if you looked
Yes.
at the cause and
Yes.
resolved it.
Yes, if we may take our booklet again,
Sure.
if you like.
Absolutely,
We
yes.
can open up this first thing here.
Okay.
Here we see, in fact, what happens in every life. We see here at the left this normatonia. This is a time where the person feels normal, very normal. There is no stress, nothing particular is giving it compulsive thinking. It's normal life. And as soon as the person runs into this DHS, this Dirk-Harmer syndrome, this is the
This
name
conflict
that
shock that
this
is there.
conflict shock,
Yeah.
the entire body on the level of the psyche, brain and organ is catapulted out of normalcy.
Yeah.
And it gets into sympathikotonia. This is the stress phase. And this stress phase here means coldness, cold hand, cold feet, compulsive thinking, as in the case of our mother.
Yeah.
The mother won't be satisfied with the situation as long as the child isn't back to health again.
Yes.
So in here, the stress expresses itself, as I said, with compulsive thinking, cold hand, cold feet, loss of weight, and a few other
Aspects.
aspects. Yes.
Okay.
And the woman will grow in her left breast this cancer,
Yeah.
more cancer cells. Okay, milk-producing cells.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they are sort of an additional help for the mother to produce more milk for the child.
So actually nothing to be scared of.
No,
in the
nothing
first
at all.
place. Yes.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's a normal program that has been in charge of human life for millions and millions of years.
Now, once the child is safe or is recovering, then there's the resolution of the conflict. We have that
Yeah.
here. And now, what happens now?
As soon as the child has recovered completely, sometimes it can be enough for the mother when the doctor says, well, your child will be fine within 2 days, you will see, there's no problem, then this can be a conflict resolution. But if the child is at the hospital and is in a very precarious state, she will, on the contrary, continue with this program, and the cells might even produce even faster, build up even faster. But as soon as she's certain that her child is well again, or is going to be well again, then that sound biological special program stops.
Yeah.
So the cell multiplication stops immediately. She will, of course, get out of her compulsive thinking. That's over, because there's no reason to think about the thing again. And these cells that have been growing in her left breast will start breaking down. And this is what we call a tuberculosis. Okay, it will break down, and that's it.
But that's actually the healing process, and it goes along with getting warm, like a fever. Like before she had cold hands, now she's getting warm because that is the other.
Very right, Joe.
Yeah.
Yes, very right, Joe. So in fact, the mother will have exactly the opposite phenomena than she had in the first phase. So instead of being cold, she gets warm.
Yeah.
Instead of building up cells, the cells will break down, and so on and so forth. And she will also become hungry again after some time. And the whole process is mainly manifesting through heat. She's warm. Especially this part of her breast can be excessively warm.
Okay.
But this is the inflammation. The inflammation is always the reparation. Excuse me if I say reparation.
Yeah.
Healing phase sounds a bit strong. If people hear healing phase, then they think, oh, well, I'm on the healing. The healing phase can sometimes produce problems, but they're absolutely manageable.
Yeah, and like with a fever, you shouldn't be afraid of, because when you have a fever, that's good for you. You are actually in the healing process or in the reparation process. And and also the time is interesting, because the time of the conflict phase seems to be exactly the same time like the healing phase. Is that correct? So that's another law too?
Yeah, that's another law too. But I would say that it takes about half of the time of the entire conflict. So if the conflict have lasted for 2 or 3 weeks, then she will be back to normalcy again after half of that time. Okay. It always depends on the emotion that the woman has. You know, if she remembers this again and again, if she, for example, goes by the place where the accident happened, she might have like a little emotion that can restart it a little bit. But normally these things they heal all on their own.
So if you don't know that, and most people don't know that, women get breast cancer or diagnosis like that, and they are in shock because they think, no, I'm going to die, or I need chemotherapy or whatever, or radiation, and of course that doesn't help anything, because it doesn't solve the cause for the disease. But once you understand this, you can be much more relaxed. And if a woman now has been to a doctor and had the diagnosis with breast cancer, what would you suggest? That she really relaxes, or is there a danger with her breast cancer, with a tumor?
No, the inflammation is, as you said, always the reparation phase. Inflammation is always reparation. This is in fact what scholastic medicine calls the sickness. They never or very rarely look at the first phase, because the symptoms aren't really striking, you know. But as soon as the conflict has been resolved entirely, then comes heat, then comes all those phenomena that the scholastic medicine calls the sickness.
There might also be bacteria and something developing, but that's also there for the reparation process. But the scholastic medicine says, oh, you got bacteria there, they are dangerous, we have to get rid of them. So that's a whole other concept.
Yeah, that's like fighting the firemen who are near a fire, you know, because you could logically say everywhere where there's a house burning, we find the fire department. So it's the fire department that is causing the fire. And this is exactly what is happening with all those bacteria. The bacteria are always an effect, never a cause. They're always an effect, and we have to be careful in not to exchange these things. Okay, first there is the conflict, and only after the conflict resolution do we get virulent or virulent, sorry, I don't know exactly how you call that, bacteria.
And also in the healing process, the normal medicine calls it a disease. So like leukemia could be, should be just a healing process, but you don't see it as that, and then you think, oh, I have to do something against that.
You are touching a point that is extremely important, and that is panic and fear, and superstition. You know, superstition. Now, scholastic medicine is not a science. You know, it's dogmatic, but it's not a science. And scholastic medicine always helps itself with other sciences. You know, like what would I say? Chemical processes and so on. And this fear is extremely important. If you remember, some time ago, I think it was Angelina Jolie had both her breasts taken off, well, the inside taken off, and had it replaced by some other stuff. And she did this out of fear of being in danger of getting of getting breast cancer.
But
because
she had nothing.
It is no, she had nothing at all. She did this because her mother had developed breast cancer around the age of 50 or 55, I don't know exactly. But on the basis of that, she said that she would like to be proactive, and therefore she took out both her breasts and replaced it.
Awful, yes.
Yeah. And with that, a lot of other people have also decided to do the same. Even men have decided to take off their testicles because their grandfather has had had a testicle cancer before. And this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is dangerous, and it is. If it wasn't so serious, one would laugh about it. But it's extremely serious, and this is the superstition that we find in scholastic medicine.
It's kind of a voodoo when the doctor says you got a cancer, you have just 3 months to live. Then who would you be to say, no, I'm not dying in 3 months? But if you deal with this medicine, you understand what's happening and you get much more relaxed. And then the doctor could say to me, you have just 1 month to live. I would say, go, relax. It's not happening.
You can certainly do that if you know these 5 natural biological laws. This is why I told before, or I said, or I insisted on the fact that people should really look into these 5 natural biological laws. I mean, it's not a game. It is serious if someone has got cancer, but it is perfectly well survivable. Women in past times, they had, I don't know, 10 children, and every day something happened with one or the other child, but they didn't care about what was going on in their breast. As long as the children got well again, nothing much happened.
And you could even find when you go to the doctor and he would look for or make mammography or what is it called, and then he would see something there because there has happened something, but it's already dissolved and resolved, so there's no problem. But he would say, oh, you got a tumor there.
Yes.
So that's the danger with modern medicine. And of course there's a lot of money being made with cancer and all this. I mean, what does chemotherapy cost for one patient? I hear it's 10,000 or hundreds of thousands.
Well, I can't really say, but it's completely mad. It's a lot of money. As far as I know, it regularly surpasses €100,000. For
one patient.
For one patient.
And there are how many every year? And like in Germany?
Well, I can tell you what happens in the German-speaking world. There are about 1,800 people dying every day from cancer. 1,800 every day. 1,800 people. Yes.
And they are usually being treated with that therapy. Which is not a therapy.
No, it is in fact the thing that kills most of the patients.
And then you can do the math and see how much money is in there. How much? If one patient is 100,000
or more, I don't know exactly. It would be interesting, but I don't think that you will get an answer from the institutions. How much does a chemotherapy on average cost, for breast cancer, for example?
But this is very important to understand that, of course, this is not liked by the medicine, so because there's a lot of money in it. And Dr. Hammer, who discovered this like 30 years ago or more,
1981, yes.
Instead of getting the medicine Nobel Prize, is being he's living abroad now because
being crushed, ridiculed, and this is really a tragic thing. What is happening with Dr. Hammer? In fact, he should get the next 50 Nobel Prizes in medicine.
Absolutely, yes.
But this is not something that is wanted either by the pharmaceutical industry nor by the medical industry in general.
Of course.
Because they would be out of their work that they're doing now. There would still be some work to be done, but in another way, complete other way.
Yes. But it would be much easier for the patient, and we're talking to an audience now who's hopefully open to understand this. It's important for me that once you understand that, you get much more relaxed about diseases and you don't go to a doctor anymore, except you have broken your leg or something. But otherwise, I don't know when I have been to the doctor the last time, because I even had examples in my own life where I had inflammation. The doctor said, I give you this and I give you that, and didn't get better. And then I asked someone who knew about the new medicine, and then I understood, of course, now and at that moment it got better. So that was the last time I had been at a doctor.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to understand. And
it is even understandable for a 9-year-old if you explain it correctly.
That's why you did all these children books, because children are more open to that. They are not brainwashed like we said before. But we want, of course, also the grown-ups to understand this. So we have talked about the laws, or the 5 basic laws, or is this something we've forgotten?
Not quite. We have talked about the psyche, brain, and the organ, and then we have talked about the trigger, which is the DHS, which is this psychobiological shock. This psychobiological shock. And then something that is very important is the two-phasedness. The two-phasedness that we have seen in the booklet. That's important. So there's a first phase which is called the conflict active phase, and then there is the sickness, the sickness, the second phase, and every sickness runs always through these two phases. There is no such thing as a one-phased ailment or disease. And the third biological law is the interrelation between the brain and the organ. Okay, it's the brain and the organ, and certain germ layers produce an immediate growth within the breast, just as in the case of our example that we mentioned, the mother, where the child was overrun and the mother was there, and this type of cell will grow in the first phase and will break down again in the second phase, whereas the other cells that are driven by the other part of the brain, we have a loss of cells, like in osteoporosis, for example, and as soon as we have resolved that conflict, which is always a conflict of self-devaluation, when we have resolved that self-devaluation, we will have a strengthening of the bones. We will really have pain within the bones, because the cells are building up again.
Dr. Hammer had an example of a young boy, as I remember, who had bone cancer, and Dr. Hammer said, okay, what is the cause for that? And he asked what happened, and then the boy said, I was at a football game and I missed the ball, and the other guys were laughing. It was so embarrassing. I don't know exactly like that, but it was this situation where he was really laughed at, and he has this conflict shock, and then he got this bone cancer, and the doctors said they wanted to ampute the leg. That wouldn't, of course, be good for the boy playing football anymore. So Dr. Hammer said, okay, that's your conflict. How can we resolve that? And they talked to the other pupils in the football club and said, how bad was it? And they said, nothing. It happens all the time that someone is missing the ball or whatever. And can he play again? Of course, if he's well again, he can play again in our club. So that was his resolution. And then he got, he didn't have to take the leg off. Yes. And then there's something in the healing phase that is called...
Well, with the missing of the football, you know, when he hit it or he missed the goal, for example. I don't know exactly in that case what happened. He must have felt like wanting to disappear in the ground, you know. He had lost complete confidence in himself, and immediately the psyche, the brain via the psyche, directs this to probably the knee in this case, probably to the knee or to the foot. I don't know exactly where that was. And then there is a breakdown of the cells. And as soon as he resolves the conflict, if he can forget about it, if he is accepted again, then nothing much will happen. It will just, you know, grow again.
And that may be painful.
That may be painful.
So Dr. Hammer says, okay, but you can always rely on that he can say it can hurt a few days, you have to accept that, but then you're good. So if you understand this are some examples, of course, we have, but it applies to every disease you have, that if you understand this, you want to look what is the cause, what happened just before. And because most people don't talk about these things that really worry
This
them.
is the isolative aspect, you know. The DHS is always a severe conflict, highly traumatic, and it also triggers this isolation. The people, they can't talk about it because, as in the case that you just cited, people were laughing. You know, he probably had feared that they were going to laugh about him again, which wasn't the case. But this is what the DHS is about. You know, the emotion that you have at a very particular moment, that is important. And if one of these factors are missing, nothing at all will happen. So it has to be a highly severe, highly traumatic, isolative, and it triggers complete helplessness. So if these points are united, then the danger is here to produce a cancer or a sickness.
It can. Let us take an old woman who is living alone, and she has a dog, and now this dog dies. And for her, this would be highly traumatic, and she couldn't talk to anybody about it. Maybe it could be.
Well, could be. I mean, there are probably thousands of dogs dying every day.
Sure.
But if you expect it already, you know, if you think that it could be possible that the dog was going to die, it won't be a shock. It won't come as a shock. This element of shock, the surprise, is crucial. You know?
But now the dog gets run over by a car, so there's a shock, and she has nobody to talk about because she's isolated in a way.
Because she might be thinking, well, nobody understands this. They will be laughing at me. They may perhaps even tell me, well, take another dog. She can very well take another dog, but it's not that Snoopy as the one she had, you know.
So we have to understand that this is also a very individual thing, and if you want to treat people, then you have to look really what is important for that person, and you have to go into that mind and not what is a dog, buy a new one. You have to really understand the person.
Right. You have really to try to get into the same feeling as this person had. You know,
Did we have all 5 laws? No. We had 4?
No, we didn't have. We had the fourth. The fourth law is about the microbes, and the microbes, they always become virulent or active in the healing phase. So they are never the cause of the sickness. And the fifth law is that every sickness is a sound biological special program made for survival.
So that's nothing to worry about. It is going to help you.
It is going to help you. Yeah, it is a tool for survival, for better survival of the species.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's so important that people understand it. And it's so sad that we don't learn that at school, and doctors don't tell us, because of course we have seen there's a lot of money and there's a big business in what you have now.
Yes.
But we can understand that, and then we get more relaxed. Now, where do I get more information? You brought some books. This is by James McComiskey?
This is a book by James McComiskey that he has started writing in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, and it came out in 2007.
Yeah.
And it is an excellent book, I must say, very easy to understand. It is one of the few books that exist in English.
Yeah.
There may be others, but I don't know of.
Yeah.
There's another one by Dr. Harmer, which is called The Summary of a New Medicine. But there aren't many copies of it any longer. I still do have a few of them, but I think to get an easy access, it is this book that really fulfills its
The Ultimate
task.
Conspiracy,
The Ultimate
is it called?
Conspiracy.
Which of course is it, if we understand this, and it's a gigantic conspiracy, because
Right.
you just have to understand what's going on, and you can't forget about millions of people dying of cancer every day.
It is a
Every
perfect
year.
conspiracy because nobody is aware of it.
Yeah. And you have these children books. They are available in English too.
Yes, they are.
The Strong Family.
Yeah, we called it The Strong Family in English, and there are translations from the original, which of course is in German. And yeah, they mainly show the mechanism of some mild diseases, children's diseases,
Yeah.
but they very well explain the mechanism. At least that's what I think. Yeah. If you can't just read it once, you would have to read it twice or three times, and I think it's just with any other good book you have to do that.
Yeah. But it's important for me also to say that you, as a viewer now, you should deal with it now as you are healthy, because once you got the diagnosis of cancer, then you would go into this. This would also be a shock. A conflict shock if you get a diagnosis to have cancer, and then you would get an extra cancer because of the diagnosis.
Yes.
Probably.
One of the most common so-called metastases that do not exist, but a second cancer can show up if you get a pessimal diagnosis, a pessimistic diagnosis. If the doctor tells you, well, I think you've got just another 6 weeks or 6 months to live, that very often is a very, very bad shock. It's in fact a conflict of fear of death, and that produces lung cancer, alveolar lung cancer.
Plus you're getting therapy that is not healthy. I mean, it's toxic if you're getting chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Plus, it's like self-fulfilling prophecy if the doctor says, okay, you might have...
Yeah. It's voodoo, as you said.
Yes, absolutely. And you have to understand that, and you have to understand it now while you're not in this situation. But because when you are in the situation and you are having this shock, then it's not easy to get out of that thinking. So it's important for me to say now, you should deal with it now, and you understand it now. It's easy to understand, children can understand it, and if you're not too brainwashed, you might understand it. I hope we could shed some light into this new medicine that Dr. Harmer found like more 30 years ago, and it's nobody knows about it.
If you allow, Joe, we could also perhaps blend in one or the other mail or homepage address.
Absolutely.
Where people can get their information or more information about these 5 natural biological laws.
Absolutely. I mean, the most that is out there is in German. There are several books out there in German from Dr. Harmer and others, but in English, as we see, it's not too much, but it's important, of course, for the whole world, and we want to really share that on the People's Voice here, and hopefully a lot of people understand how important, how vitally important for the whole world it is. And if the medicine doesn't change, then you can change and relax whenever you get a disease. You understand, okay, there's a cause for it. I look what happened there, or someone can help me there and relax me and say it's not so bad as you think.
Yes, and these booklets, they exist in 8 languages, so they are also available in Italian for those who don't understand any English or German. They exist in French, although we've only got the first four volumes,
Translated.
and in Spanish, and In Russian we've got one, so I think that is also a very important region where we should try to introduce the idea of these 5 natural biological laws.
And it is called the German New Medicine because New Medicine alone is too...
Yeah, for a long time Dr. Harmer had called it New Medicine. Yeah. And then little by little there were other new medicines popping up all around the place. And in order to distinguish these 5 natural biological laws from other new medicines, he decided to call it German New Medicine.
Okay,
German New Medicine.
So you might want to look it up and you will find these books probably somewhere in a bookstore.
Yeah, or Amazon has it.
Yeah, The Ultimate Conspiracy in English. And we'll show some homepages that deal with it. And it has to spread around the world, so cancer will lose its danger. And I'm absolutely relaxed today. If someone would say you might get cancer, I would say, leave me alone.
Yes, that's the big profit that you have. It's the cheapest life insurance that you can have, and the best at the same time.
Just understanding the biological rules of disease. Thank you for explaining that to us and sharing that, and for your work. You're doing lectures about it and stuff. And I'm happy that you came here from Switzerland and took the effort. Many thanks.
Thanks to you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.